right, welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I am your host, the Football Grump, and with me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan. How's it going, buddy?
Grump, it's late tonight. It's late Monday night. You know why it's late? Because I just returned from Yankee Stadium and the continued ownage of my Tampa Bay Rays over the once proud, once feared, once good New York Yankees.
Wow.
So I know we don't give out MVPs and World Series championships in April or May, and this is why. So I'm going tomorrow night with my broom. I'll be waving it after a sweep.
It's been it's a tense time in New York baseball Twitter.
It sure is.
I don't really know how to describe it as mostly as an observer, but you're on an unusual side of it, and
it's interesting because the Met fan always thinks that gloom and doom is one pitch away, and the Yankee fan always thinks they're God's gift to the universe, and they're just it's nothing, don't worry about it, even though they've had a horrible month. So it's again, I'm not planning my boat parade around Tampa Bay just quite yet, but it's been a fun series so far for the good guys. And I'm probably the only person who's on listening to this show who said good guys in my favor. But October's coming, boys. Be afraid.
I'm glad you got that off your chest. I'm pretty sure everyone's already clicked out of this. That was fast. So
if anybody wants more of that coverage, check out the Cranky Fan podcast on FL Teams network, and I'll give you a little bit more with that. So
yeah,
but
you're cruising for 1-star review right there.
But what is this? This is Just Giants. This isn't just Cranky Fan giving you shit. This was the Just Giants pod. So let's talk about that.
Hell yeah! So we briefly convened before the weekend, right? I think it was Friday. Oh my God, was it Friday afternoon or Friday morning? We had I guess it was Friday afternoon. We had a post preseason game reaction, and it feels like so much has happened since then too, which is really bizarre, isn't it?
You can only talk about the 10 or so plays the first team had for so much, and then you beat that to death, and then every little morsel of news you get between now and then, between cutdowns and injuries and things blown out of proportion, and fortunately we're here to cover all of that.
Yeah. So I started my day today, and there's a number of things that we do need to go over that are actual football things, but I started my day today with some bullshit here, and that is, I'm gonna read here a back and forth between the media and Brian Daboll, which occurred this morning, and the question is there a need or maybe a desire or maybe even a curiosity to see what Tyrod can do with the first team at some point this summer? Brian Daboll's answer was, yeah, as we get going here in terms of preseason games, we'll talk about whatever we think is best, but I have full confidence in Daniel and full confidence in Tyrod and what his role is. Each day we sit there and we evaluate the guys, but will he get a few reps here or there? He might. Question. Is that any reflection on Daniel? Absolutely not. No. I learned from a pretty good coach a while ago. Usually he doesn't tell these guys when he throws them in, because that's what the backup's role is. You have to go in on a split second. You prepare like you're a starter, but the fourth play of the game, something happens, you're in, you got to be ready to go. So I don't necessarily think we'll tell those guys when that will happen.
So Grump, do you know the telephone game?
Yeah, because this eventually was watered down to Brian Daboll says Tyrod Taylor will get some first-team reps during camp, but that's not an indictment on Daniel Jones. It's always been planned. #Giants. Care to elaborate?
Yeah. First thing is, the New York media, and probably some extent the national media, is just dying to write the obituary for Daniel Jones as the quarterback of this team. They can't wait. They can't wait for him even before he fails to write that he's failed. So this is just them pushing a narrative that they have had literally since the day he was drafted. It's the final digs they can get at Dave Gettleman, the final digs they can get at this organization. It's been a disaster for a decade. So, they're just pushing their story as far as they can. But again, when you start hearing words like maybe, possibly, I don't know, maybe becoming definitive, I think, again, our theme of this show has been all along, if you have a narrative, you're going to believe what you hear and pick out the words that you hear as validation of what you believe. Um, you know, should Tyrod Taylor get some practice with the ones? Absolutely. Of course. I mean, exactly to his point. If Daniel Jones goes down at any point in this season, whether it's for a snap, a drive, a quarter, a half, a game, the rest of the season, he has to be ready and not playing with backups and scrubs. He has to play with the first team. He needs to get and they need to have a little practice with him also. I mean, they're different quarterbacks, different skill sets. So, I mean, I think it would be negligence not to have him sprinkle in a couple snaps with him. But again, this is still going back to our other big picture and big story about why is Tyrod Taylor here, right? He's not here to compete for the starting job. I mean, this is Daniel Jones' year of evaluation. And in spite of what a lot of you people think, like, well, they better be 4-4 at the bye or else they're making a move. That's not the way to go. He's going to get a full year evaluation unless he is god awful, injuring people in the third row of the stands with errant passes. Right? Do you agree?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, this is kind of this is just lazy, and it's kind of sad. Like it's intentionally misleading to stir up a thing. And what's frustrating about pointing this kind of thing out, or I mean, I don't know, even getting irked by it, is that it's like it almost feels like it's in defense of Daniel Jones keeping his starting position, or in any way making excuses for him, but it's really not. It's just, I don't know, maybe you agree or disagree with this, but I think when you reach for things like this, it cheapens legitimate arguments, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So I think this kind of stuff is silly. Like, I feel like Daniel Jones's play almost stands for itself. The national perception of him, I think, is worse than what he actually is. Mm-hmm. There's no need to force this. I think this is already the narrative that's out there. So why continue?
Well,
it just seems weird to shoehorn it.
As soon as you hear the word turnover in Daniel Jones, that's a lazy narrative, because anybody can just look at his stats and see how the turnovers have gotten better over the last couple of years. I mean, he was a turnover machine, a fumble machine his rookie year. A lot of that's been cleaned up in his game, wrapped around being injured and unavailable to play. But when you hear that, a lot of people in national media, that's the first thing they bring up. Daniel Jones got to cut back on those turnovers. Well, he kind of has already. And, even if they decide Daniel Jones is not the guy and Daniel Jones is playing poorly.
And I really think he's not going to be the guy. I would be very shocked if he's the quarterback next year as things stand right now.
Occam's razor tells you the most likely scenario is probably the one that's right. And is it somewhere where a guy has struggled and for whatever reason, all of a sudden is going to turn around and be, worthy of an extension and a big money extension? Or is he just, and he's just always going to be, most likely. But I think it's like the meme, the tell me you're tanking without telling me you're tanking. It's going to be one of those things where he's going to be evaluated this entire year. And if he's playing poorly, and the record of this team is, 4-12, 4-13, 4-14, that's not the worst thing in the world for this team, because they're going to need to replace this quarterback, and they're most likely going to get that quarterback through the draft, and they're going to try to increase their chances in the draft by losing. Again, Giant fans don't want to hear that, but they can go behind the cover of, we are trying to evaluate Daniel Jones as much as we can before we make that decision. And again, unless he's throwing balls into the third row and hurting people, unless he pulls his, Fromm impersonation from last year, or his Mike Glennon impersonation, he's not going to be that bad. Now, they may not win, but again, let's look at the roster we're talking with. We're talking about a roster that's not very good. This is a roster that has deficiencies in several key places, does not have the depth in several key places. So to blame it all on him, you could just ride him out, get the better draft pick next year, and away we go. So Tyrod Taylor is never bringing him in to win one or two extra games. It in more ways is a detriment to this franchise longer term than short term. I mean, I don't know if you guys really want to get off winning a meaningless game in December because, hey, we won a game when it might cost us a pick or something, or, he's not going to be the starting quarterback in this team in 2024. No way. He might be next year if we draft a quarterback and we need a bridge until that quarterback is ready. But that's why he was brought here. He's not brought here to win games, not brought here to be the starter. So you just have to keep that in your brain when you're thinking about him before you start clamoring for him.
Yeah. Again, it's so painful to have to go through this stuff. It really is, isn't it?
And I feel like it's for the fans as much for bashing the media. I mean, the media is going to have their stories, but so many people we interact with on Twitter and friends of ours is just, I understand the frustration. It's been a decade, and but you can't hurry along a rebuild to happen in 2 weeks. You have to go through the process, and this year is the beginning of that process. It's not the 11th year of the process. It's the first year of the process. It sucks, but that's where we are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll be pretty shocked if Daniel Jones is back here next year.
I would be shocked. Let me ask you one more question, Grump, before we move on talking about Daniel Jones. Is it even in our best interest if, let's say, he has a decent year and he's showing signs, and we decide either to franchise him or sign him to a extension of X amount of years? Is it where this team is right now in development, utilizing so much cap space on a quarterback at this point in the rebuild? Is it even worth it? Is it even in our best interest, or is it just better off just cutting bait and starting over next year?
Honestly, it's hard to commit to Daniel Jones long time on health reasons alone, man. So
That's right.
This whole conversation is really, really difficult to even fathom.
Mm-hmm. But my whole point of this whole thing is just that where we are in the life cycle of this rebuild, making that commitment to him when, the offensive line isn't 100% yet, and the weapons around him are 100%, the money that's being spent, because, you build with a quarterback who's, on a cheap rookie deal, or, you're kind of riding a quarterback into that second wave of his career, and Daniel Jones being that second wave of his career where you're spending a considerable chunk on him, where those resources could be used in so many things we have to rebuild on this team. I just don't, even unless he comes out and is unworldly this year, where he's all of a sudden becomes Kurt Warner out of nowhere. I just don't think it's even worth it. And not that I'm not rooting for him or in any of that. It's just the more I think about it, does it even make sense to even worry about him after this year?
I don't want to even project my thoughts too much into the long term like this, because it's so difficult for me to imagine some of these scenarios, and it just kind of comes at me as it comes at me,
So then are you fine with the scenario I raised a little while ago, just saying ride him for the whole season? If he sucks, he sucks. The record is what it is.
Absolutely.
Don't try to chase a plan. Don't try to chase an extra win or two with Taylor, who might give you an extra win or two.
No
but
way. No,
Good.
100%. No, not
Okay.
That's not even a scenario to me. As far as I know, that's the plan. That's what I assume the plan is. I can't imagine the plan being anything else.
See, I think a dope like McAdoo or even Judge would have. I don't think this, again, it's year one for this coaching staff. It's year one for this GM. I think they have a lot more leash from the ownership. They're at the beginning of their plan. I think those other guys were just in more of a panic mode, which they were trying to chase wins. Fortunately, we're not in that scenario.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with a defensible situation in which I'm like, oh, maybe if Daniel's playing great and he's just knocked out for a game, it doesn't matter. No, it's not even chasing wins at that point. That's just playing football.
Right.
In any case, Some big roster updates here. Jeremiah Hall, the big roster updates. No, they had to cut some guys, so some back end guys are gone. Jeremiah Hall was kind of a surprise for me, but not really. He hasn't looked particularly fascinating in his H-back role or in any kind of fullback role or whatever. He's looked okay. He looks like a UDFA adjusting. The only thing that makes it mildly surprising is that I do think that there is some upside there. I think that he is working hard in his transition from college, and I think he could do it. But really, it's more that I don't like, and this is going to lead into our next conversation, is there's like no H-back tight end that's like healthy on this roster, and I have no idea what the depth situation is there. So it's strange that he's not necessarily cut, but that he's cut now. He's like one of the initial cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, Gavin Heslop, Austin Prohl, names like that. Nothing too shocking.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, the Jeremiah Hall conversation, this leads into the injury conversation, right? And this is a laundry list, so I'm just going to kind of frame it, and I'm just going to piggyback off of the way that Dan Duggan has this broken down based on guys working on the side, guys kind of getting maintenance days, and guys who have been out for a long time now. And speaking to the Jeremiah Hall thing, Ricky Seals-Jones, I forgot that he practiced in any capacity. It's been so long.
I forgot he was on the team.
Yeah. Shane Lemieux, he's got that undisclosed at this point foot injury. That's pretty concerning. It is beyond just a toe at this point. It is now some ambiguous foot thing.
It just seems like a guy that's just always going to have, it's bad luck or whatnot, always going to have a problem.
I'm officially kind of worrying about that. Although I don't think that he missed time in college at all. So
I don't recall, but he's missing it in the pros, that's for sure.
Ellerson Smith, who went down with a foot or ankle injury of some kind in practice the other day. Jihad Ward, same thing, had a lower leg injury, I believe, of some kind in practice the same day, I think almost around the same moment.
Mm-hmm.
Blake Martinez is still out. Sterling Shepard, obviously, still out on the PUP list. Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell, Kadarius Toney, Darius Slayton, David Sills, John Feliciano, Josh Azudi, Jamil Douglas, Cordell Flott, Rodarius Williams, and those guys were kind of working on the side in some capacity only. And then Leonard Williams and Adoree Jackson, they're kind of on maintenance days. Man, it feels like
So Grump, who's playing?
Exactly. No, that's a serious thing. Is the starting offensive line is pretty ugly for practice. So,
and then it scares me if we get to Sunday, and we have a patchwork offensive line. How much do you really want Daniel Jones out there? How much do you want Saquon Barkley out there?
Well, how much do I want any of these injured guys to be out there?
That's what I'm saying.
If they're going to be injured, what are we even going to see? This is all right. So this is. I don't want to branch into this conversation, but there's a lot of conversation about the offense being bad in practice and just things looking bad in practice. This is why I don't think too much about training camp practice, or as much as I used to. Is that it's all just practice, man. They're not going to drills. They're not going to push too many guys who are hurt to play through being hurt, and if they do, they're kind of foolish. I mean, they're practicing things, right? We learned that Daniel Jones is intentionally pushing the ball into double coverage on certain drills. The defense is working their own thing against them. The offense is working their own thing, and we hyperanalyze things without proper information and
perspective.
Yeah, and maybe I'm guessing correctly, and maybe I'm not, and maybe the overarching theme is that practice is awful. But the truth, I think will be spelled out more clearly in preseason games. I think we'll see a little bit more, and as the preseason games get closer, we'll see a little bit more, and we can kind of really just look more at the roster moves that they make, the preseason games, and how those things might correlate, and that's kind of it. That's where we really get any definitive proof.
I even push it further back. It's to me what the roster moves were and what we look like in weeks 1 and 2.
Yeah, and
I mean, honestly,
ultimately that's where it's all going to come to.
We might be looking at combinations on the offensive line that we won't normally see. We might see, We saw Darius Slayton doing an end around like on the second or third play of the first game. Like, I wouldn't expect to see that package in a regular season game. They want to look at something specific, or maybe they're showcasing him. Things you wouldn't see in a normal regular season game to try to win a game. So I think when you get to week 1 and week 2 and they're game planning specifically to play a game, and they play a game and they're trying to win, not develop things, not to get reps in, not to showcase somebody, not to talent evaluate, but this is my best 11 right now. This is my best play to run, best execution. That's where we're going to know where this team really stands. And everything else is just what your take is on something you don't have the right insight in. You're not in the coach's room. You're not in the player's room. You're not in the position room. You don't know what the objective is of every particular every throw, every block, every drill, every snap, every anything. We don't know. We're just watching and observing from the lens of, in a game that's not good, but we don't know. So I'm with you all the way. I'm really taking the step back from going psycho crazy about everything I see and what does that mean and who's winning the race. And I'm learning to trust these coaching staff that they know what they're doing and they are building up to something. And to your point, when guys get cut, whether it's that first 5 or cut down day, we'll know, who's not on this team and why they're on this team and what we saw means something or not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. I'm gonna step back and bringing this a little bit back towards the injury side of the conversation is I'm really not gonna take note of what goes on in practice when so many guys that are going to be integral parts of this team in one respect or another aren't there. You know what I mean? I'm just
totally.
Am I really supposed to feel shitty about, and it's okay to feel shitty about guys who are repeatedly injured, okay? So that's like a separate part of this conversation. But like, am I supposed to feel shitty about the scheme or the talent or whatever based on Daniel Jones playing with 2 starters on the offensive line, a backup running back maybe, and
1 wide receiver?
Yeah, like literally like 1 wide receiver that's expected to start. Am I supposed to feel bad about that when I know that most of those guys, they're just playing it safe with their injuries? They're not truly hurt where they can't do things. It's just.
And here's the thing. The other thing is that if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you're listening to Talking Giants. You're listening to all the other shows. You're taking in information about the Giants. You've probably gone to camp. You know this team. It's in a bubble, though, compared to the other 31 teams. You don't know what these other teams, what their injury situations are to the level of detail you do with the Giants. You don't know what drills they're doing right now. So you have no perspective and no kind of, where is this team relative to how other teams are? Are they ahead or behind in their development, in their reps, in their evaluation, in their, for anything? So I think when you just focus it on this one team, it's just kind of in a vacuum. And I think once we get to, again, week 1, week 2, week 3, it's no longer a vacuum. It's teams playing against each other, winners and losers. Cream will rise to crop sooner or later. Is this team ahead or behind where it should be at that point in the season?
Yeah. And now bringing it specifically to the injuries, things that really do worry me.
Mm-hmm.
Right off the bat, Shane Lemieux is one.
Yeah.
I think I like Shane Lemieux more than most people. I know that he had his struggles, but I think that he's gotten better. I think that he's looked good in everything that I've seen. It's a shame he's hurt. I really hope this isn't an injury thing for him, like forever. But I mean, good is relative. I think he's a functional guard. I think that him being able to play at the level he looked like allows us to rebuild slowly along that offensive line, maybe transition for the right guy at the right time and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, John Feliciano continues to worry me. I know he had some crazy cramping issue or something that knocked him out with dehydration for a really long time. I still think there was more to it than just that. But, whatever. That's just me. Who cares?
Sure.
But continuing to miss time, that worries me only because I saw exactly what it looks like when he's not there. And it was probably some of the worst shit I've ever seen.
I'll tell you who scares me is more and more is no Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, that's starting to get on your nerves.
It's getting on my nerves because you hear the reports from the coaching staff of what a difference maker he can be, and you know having him out there gets everybody else. You're taking a step down on the reliance on a rookie, as that slot guy. You have two of these guys. You can do so many different things, and we don't know what the deal is with Kenny Galladay. We don't know if he's just a head case and you know on his way to be one of the biggest busts in Giant history or not. Nobody I can certainly count on by any stretch. We don't know with Sterling Shepard when he'll be back for sure. We have a litany of guys that are kind of fringy receivers who've been, battling to be on this team for a while. And again, we're in year 2 only with Kadarius Toney, but if you're not on the field, it becomes a problem. And I can only dismiss it and wave it off for so much and isolated, but he's not available again. And it's just, it really changes what this offense can and can't do, not having him on the field.
Absolutely. I mean, there are specific packages that you can tell are written into the playbook specifically for Kadarius Toney.
Sure.
And I don't know. I wonder how much of it is maintenance. I wonder how much isn't. I do believe that he did a little bit more work today. I don't think it was team drills. But
even if it's maintenance, I mean, how many guys are getting very limited reps because of maintenance? Maintenance indicates maintenance to prevent something from happening again, or it's still happening. That's what scares me.
How many practices did we see Toney in team drills? 3 even? 4?
I think 3 or 4 most.
Yeah, it's
and this is not a guy who's just he's ready. Just he didn't play that much last year.
No, I mean he's got plenty to prove.
Absolutely, and just he needs those reps. I mean, again, if he's a guy who's like Sterling Shepard, doesn't need the reps necessarily. He's been through this 1,000 times. He's a professional, knows his place. This guy is still like a glorified rookie for the amount of time he's actually been on the field with this team.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be frustrated when it's week 1 with him. It doesn't appear to be anything too major.
Concern now, not frustrated. Frustrated will be Jesus Christ. It's week 1. He's not here again.
Yeah. Concern. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. It's almost. You're concerned. I don't know that I feel concerned yet, but I do feel like almost like. I'm like salivating at the thought of what this will look like with him, and I want to see it so bad because
that makes it frustrating. It's like that specter of what it could be. That the siren call of having these 2 scat backs who can just have their ankles bend and they move in ways. They move like Jagger. They're fantastic, but what good is it if I'm just thinking about it all day?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just don't feel necessarily frustrated yet, but I'm excited. I don't know. It's like teasing me. Yeah, everybody else. I'm a little concerned at how long it's been with Matt Breida.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's maybe overblowing a position I don't maybe care that much about, backup running back, but
on a normal team I wouldn't be as concerned, but again, until I see Saquon Barkley play 17 games, it's something you have to have in the back of your mind, because if he goes down for whatever reason and Breida's not there, we've seen a nice competition with the guys who are fighting to be the number 3 running back on this team, but they're still number 3 running backs. And the drop off from Breida down to the other guys, the Brightwells of the world, that's a drop off. I know they look good in the scrimmage, but they're also playing against second and third team guys as well. How would they face, first team guys and, really good defensive lines? We don't know. Probably not good. So I understand the frustration and the concern about that.
I'm a little worried about Jahad Ward being out. I don't know if I should be or not, but seems to be like a veteran presence. At the edge position where there's no real experience there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's really that big of a deal. Maybe it's not. Maybe his injury's not that big a deal. I'm not really sure.
Maybe just from the veteran presence more than the actual
Well,
production.
I think maybe for like the scheme things, I think it's a complicated defense that
He was brought in specifically to kind of help implement this, and he's not there.
Maybe. And you know, one mistake with this kind of thing will be a blown coverage for a 78-yard touchdown kind of thing. I don't know.
Has you and the fan base starting to get that mental preparation for seeing that specific scenario happen a lot this year? The potential for a blown coverage and a guy, quarantined by himself with the 80-yard touchdown. It's going to happen.
Have I been mentally prepared for it? What are you asking me specifically?
Yeah, like it's like knowing it's going to happen. Are you getting yourself kind of like, okay, we knew something like this was going to happen at some point, not being just like, what the hell? What is this?
Oh, no. I mean, I know that this is like from the moment he was hired for starters, not even looking at the roster, this is something that's a potential with this kind of defense. That's fine. And it's more likely against good teams that study well. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be shocked if Tom Brady were able to identify some kind of formation and know that he's got some kind of coverage or something like that, or know that there's some way to exploit that or confuse the defense back and whatever, right? No, I mean, that just from hiring him. So I've already got those expectations. I knew our roster. We did our 53-man how you get under the cap exercise, and we couldn't separate with James Bradbury, and yet we did. So, I mean, you look at it then, there was another checkpoint. So I'm mentally prepared. I'm right there. I think people maybe are freaking out a little bit. Maybe a little bit, and I'm not making like a general complaint about Giants fans. I think people maybe are overreacting to the preseason game just a little bit, and I say that because A, it's preseason, it's practice, but B, more so is that I saw what Wink Martindale runs on every single down in practice, and I saw what they did in the preseason game, and they're not the same. I mean, on every single play in practice, he's bringing a blitz. I know he's not going to do that in a game, but you have to see the variety and the creativity in some of these blitzes. What we saw in the preseason game was a little bit of that here and there, very, very, very frequently, maybe under 3 times. For the most part, he was just bringing an extra rusher. There wasn't anything too bananas about it. And I know
there's a difference between bringing pressure and being exotic.
Right. What I was going to say is when it comes to the live bullets, I think that, again, a lot of what makes this defense work and cover up some roster inefficiencies or whatever is confusion and some of that kind of thing.
So let me ask you a question about this coming Sunday.
Yes.
We're playing Cincinnati. It'll be my first preseason game in 21 years. Very exciting.
Very.
Do you expect to see a little more of the exoticness from Wink in this game? And because they're playing Cincinnati, a team that's familiar with his scheme, do you expect to see any more game planning against it? Or you think they just run a bit of vanilla themselves because it's preseason?
I don't know what to expect from this coaching staff in Wink Martindale, to be honest. That's an excellent question. I could see that. The only thing I can really definitively answer is I think that we'll see more time with the starters, and I think that when we do see the exotic blitzes, we'll see 1 or 2 with the starters. I think that probably will happen.
Right.
But whether we'll see tons of it, no. I think a lot of it is keeping it close to the vest.
And again, like I said earlier, there's a difference between bringing pressure and blitzing and having all the the real exotic crazy stuff that's like going to confuse a defense.
Yeah. And game planning against it, I don't know. Maybe maybe on the fly Joe Burrow will recognize something and want to practice an audible that he thinks okay, maybe, but that seems a little...
Yeah, only reason I'm really asking, again, because he used to be in that division and they've seen him before.
It's a fair question. I didn't think of it.
And we're getting from, week 1, which is straight up vanilla, to week 2 where you're getting a little more, getting more game ready. Let's see what we can do.
I would hope so, because they don't look game ready yet. But
No. But
I also don't think that they look as bad as I think a lot of other people do.
But let me tell you something. I was on my trip around the country this past weekend. I was watching NFL Network and watching that Dallas Denver game and watching the Pittsburgh game. Nobody looks good right now. So again,
I haven't seen a single snap of like any other
Yeah.
other than the Zach Wilson injury.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen a single snap of any other teams.
I mean, they're funny to watch because they're always the local broadcasters, and they're cheerleaders for the team, and they're so super excited about everything they see. But it's just like, this is bad football. So again, we're in our giant bubble right now. We're just watching this team, and we're like, oh, they look like garbage. But something, everybody right now looks like garbage. They're not teams yet. They're a bunch of guys that are learning to grow together and practicing together and gelling together to become a team. So just keep that in mind. We're still at, this is August 17th, 12:04 a.m. This isn't week 1 yet. Ways to go.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to go, and I'm really interested to see what happens in this upcoming preseason game. This week of practice, and in any of the practices, really, all I'm really paying attention to is who is and who isn't practicing, and any new injuries or roster moves that happen.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I'm not at the practices. I don't really know what's going on in videos and drills. If something amazing happens, maybe I'll think it's cool.
Well, most people aren't anymore anyway. So the practices are now closed, and media availability is limited. So we're pretty much relying on what the coaches say in their press conferences and leaks. So that's what these preseason games, I guess, are an opportunity to see things.
Yeah. As it stands, the way this is going to work is our next episode will be after that preseason game next week. So perfect time for another episode, since all we're concentrating on is roster moves and injuries.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason there would be an episode in between now and then is if either something really great happens or something really, really bad happens. And it's more likely that it would be something bad than something good, because I can't really imagine what good news that would be, whatever. But
I will tell you some good news. It was confirmed to me tonight that there will be a tailgate on Sunday before the game. Our normal spot. You have to check on Nicky Snack's tattooed leg to get that location. Was it L17?
L16, I think.
L16. We'll be there. The Talking Giants crew will be there.
What time is that? Is that a night game, or is
it's a 7:00 game?
Oh, whack. All right. Well, I guess if I know Snacks well enough, he'll be there the moment the gates.
He's
are
probably
open.
there now, actually. So.
Yeah, he might be packing the car.
But we will all be there. We'd like to meet everybody, and again, these
preseason games are fun, man. You can pay attention all you want, or you can just dick around and walk around and have a good time.
You don't have to worry.
It really doesn't matter.
The most exciting thing is we're going to get on the train after the game is over and not be mad that we lost. It's just a tradition unlike no other lately as Giant fans. But we just go and observe and have a good time, see our friends, and complain about the Guns N' Roses to Metallica mixture of songs they play. And
pretty much, yeah. But mostly see all of our old friends.
Yeah, and hopefully meet some new ones. So if you're out there, come join us and say hi.
Yeah. In the interim, you can find us on Twitter at @football_grump and at the Cranky Fan. Also, you can find the Cranky Fan on his FL Teams podcast on YouTube, where he is very active with Rays baseball right now and stuff you probably don't want to pay attention to. But very soon will likely be Gators football, and that will be something you want to pay attention to. So bookmark this website.
I'm telling you now, everybody, if you don't know the name Anthony Richardson, you will very shortly. And also a second name I'm going to give you, Osiris Torrance.
Okay.
Right guard, who's probably going to be drafted in the first round. Transferred from Louisiana over to Florida. He's already being projected as a first-team All-SEC guy. I'll give you updates on him as well, because might be someone we might be of interest to us somewhere.
Absolutely. So you know where to go for all that now. And this podcast, of course, is available on YouTube as well as various other streaming sites for podcasts such as iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, etc. So with that said, we will see you all next Tuesday morning, correct?
Tuesday morning.
All right, everyone. See you then, and go
Go
Giants.
Giants.